Okay. Hello. Hello. Happy Burns Night to my to my many Scottish viewers. I hope you have your great chieftain of the pudding race. This is part 30 of this. I'm 977 commits in, which does raise the question of whether I can manage to make exactly 23 commits in this stream to bring it up to a nice even 1,000. So I'll just throw that out there now to, create a little bit of a sense of jeopardy. Just like to think about if you get bored. Anyway, what I'm doing here is, apart from pressing the wrong button, I am making a WebAssembly interpreter in Ruby. I'm doing that to have fun. I'm doing it to demystify WebAssembly for myself, perhaps you as well. And I'm just doing it to share how I work on this kind of thing. It's all a bit of a strange experiment, but there you go. For me, it's more important that I have fun than that I make a fully functional WebAssembly interpreter. It's more important that the code that I write is correct than that it is fast. In fact, it's almost certainly not going to be fast. This is increasingly the case. I want to write clear code, even if that means sort of turning down opportunities to write clever code. And I'm doing it in pure Ruby, no C extensions or anything. I'm doing it with no dependencies. That's the deal. Before I get stuck in, brief retro, as always, to think about what happened last time. So what happened last time is, basically I just did some refactoring, but specifically what I did was that I changed more of the sort of the runtime representation of modules, sort of drove a bit more of a wedge between the sort of ahead of time, sort of the AST basically, what the parser emits, which previously was pretty much what the runtime was using, but I've been changing more and more of the runtime representation of modules over the last couple of streams. Last time I finally engaged with the idea of actually having multiple modules in play at once and being able to import and export things between them. So that's working, that's good. Inevitably, that's created a little bit more weirdness because now functions can be represented either as like a function object with a capital F or as a proc. So the sort of functions that are defined in WebAssembly are implemented as these function objects. Native functions, like the ones in the spectest, the sort of the native spectest module where those functions are implemented in Ruby, are implemented as procs. So, it's not ideal. There's more mess for me to clean up in the future. I need to do some more refactoring there and think a little bit about OO design, basically, but I just haven't done that yet. But on the other hand, that refactoring has meant removing a bunch of special cases and magical strings and particularly support for the spectest module. Like now there is actually just an instance of the class called module and it knows that its name is spectest and you can import stuff from it. So that feels like I've made the implementation a bit more regular, at the expense of leaving some junk around that I need to clean up later, but I can live with that and I hope you can too. The main win of what I've done so far, and I suppose this is the thing I felt good about from last time, is that I've now better isolated the AST from the runtime, specifically the sort of duplication of concerns in the AST, because I didn't want to get bogged down in dealing with abbreviations and stuff. There are essentially two ways to import each kind of thing. Sort of an explicit import and then an inline import that's an abbreviation for that, and likewise for exports. And right now, the way I've implemented that is that just both of those things exist in the AST in separate forms, and previously that was sort of bleeding through into the interpreter. Now, when the module gets instantiated from the AST, the sort of module instantiation process kind of deals with all of those representation details in the AST and just produces a mostly well-rounded module object that is mostly regular. So I think that sort of making sure that those lazy details from the AST don't leak into the runtime anymore, by sort of consolidating both of those ways of exporting things when the module is instantiated, so that the rest of the interpreter doesn't need to deal with that detail, is a good thing, and I'm glad that I did that. I think it's going to make a bunch of other stuff a lot easier. So yeah, that was a net win essentially. So all that is good, but the cost of making those changes and cleaning up, as always with streams where I just do refactoring for several hours, is that I didn't make any actual progress on implementing WebAssembly. I got 0 new test parsing last time, because I sort of got sucked into, the very tempting world of refactoring. So again, this time I just want to focus and try and get more stuff parsing. Like, that's my agenda for today. I mean, this pendulum seems to swing back and forth with some regularity, but I don't know how to stop that or what to do about it. I mean, maybe it's fine. I mean, it's sort of a little bit red-green refactor. I mean, I don't want to try to dress it up as something any more high-minded than me just doing whatever I feel like I have to do. But, if I agonize over every single design decision up front, then I'll never get anything done. And if I never do any agonizing or refactoring or cleaning up, then the whole thing will very quickly just fall apart and be a mess that I can't continue to work with. So I think it's probably good to have this rhythm of going back and forth between making some test pass and then doing some refactoring. And like I say, that's pretty much what the TDD dogma would prescribe anyway. So maybe it's not so bad. It's just a little bit frustrating because it feels like it's eating up more time. I'm already I'm already on part 30 of this. And like I said, I'm not especially bothered about whether I ever produce a fully functional WebAssembly interpreter, but like, I would like to be getting more done in the time available. And I feel like every time I spend an entire stream just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, which is a promising metaphor for this project, I just worry I'm not really like getting anywhere. I'm not, even though a fully fledged WebAssembly interpreter is not necessarily a realistic goal for this, it's a sort of, I can measure my distance from that conclusion, and I want to feel like that distance is getting smaller every time, even if I never actually reach it. But anyway, I've still got a million things that I need cleaning up and improving, but I really want to maintain momentum on actually getting more of the interpreter working. So I'm going to plow onward once more. I think that's all I wanted to say. So I can probably press this button. Oh, that button doesn't do anything. What about this button? It also doesn't do anything. I really don't understand why why things don't work, because most of the time they work, and then and then sometimes they don't. Okay, so here we are again, and just checking that everything works. So I got quite a lot done last time, or I sort of intentionally broke things down so that I could check off more things to make it look like I did more than I actually had. But either way, it certainly looks like I did lots. Oh, hi, Chris. Welcome. Well, congratulations on missing most of the refactoring. Yeah, today is just going to be pure, unbridled momentum. So I hope that you're wearing your seatbelt on your... I like to imagine that when people watch this, they're not just, not just some undignified situation where they're just lounging on a sofa or sitting in bed or whatever. I like to think that there's a sort of, perhaps a dedicated, high-backed armchair next to the fireplace, smoking jacket situation. So yeah, I mean, I hope that that's the situation on your end. Oh, Chris says, I'm finding the videos dropping frames today. Audio is fine and could be at my end, but it's usually fine. Yeah, it's not looking very good, is it? What can I do about that? I'm not sure. I'm probably not capable of troubleshooting this. That's a shame. Yeah, this is the sort of thing where if I knew anything about streaming or computers, I'd be able to do something about that, but I don't. But I don't think it is on your end. I can see OBS is saying 40% of frames are being dropped. Maybe I'll just off screen here. Maybe I'll just very briefly try to see if there's any reason for that. I cannot see anything that is obviously causing that problem. That's a shame though, isn't it? Maybe I'll quit some stuff and see if that helps. Problem is, I can't quit everything. Oh well. I suppose I'll just have to roll with it. Sorry for the low frame rate, everyone. I don't know why it's dropping frames. We'll just have to. If I quit OBS, then it will terminate the stream, and I'll have to start it all over again. So, and there's of course no guarantee that that will even help. So, I don't know why that's happening. My CPU is very low, so. Oh well. Anyway, I just have to accept that I don't understand how to improve that situation. Apologies for the presumably very choppy video. Okay, so I didn't even read those, but they can't have been important. So yeah, I think everything else here is, this is all just sort of faffing around, refactoring stuff. Certainly this to do is about actually, this is something I'm going to actually have to do, basically making the collection of globals reflect the ones that have been imported. I just haven't bothered to do that yet because it hasn't been necessary. I think everything else here is basically refactoring. So yeah, there's nothing particularly outstanding there. Likewise, in questions I'm unsure about, I think this is all me just ruminating on potential cleanup and refactorings and stuff like that. So I think what I'll do is just get straight into looking at these again from this sort of somewhat miscellaneous selection of tests that I thought should be parsing by now but aren't. I think I'll take a look at some of them and see if I can figure out why they're failing. Maybe I'll run that here. So this one, data.wast, offset. So let's take a look at what this test is doing. Data.wast. Getting distracted by how many frames are dropping, but I just have to accept that, don't I? Okay, so this was looking for offset. Right. So I think this is something that I haven't thought about at all, really. What have I actually implemented so far? Let's have a look. Do I have parse data? Yeah, okay. So we've got something that can parse these data fields. And what does it do? It looks for data. And then it tries to read a single instruction, which I don't know if that's right, really. Is there any guarantee that that's only a single instruction? Seems kind of unlikely to me. Let's see. So data segments. Oh goodness. Okay. Oh, so actually. Okay. Well, so actually, I think this is right because it looks like. Hold on. How does this work? Data optional ID, and then a data string, which is 0 or more strings. And I think, yeah, so we've got this repeatedly parsed string thing. So we can read this okay. But it looks like, so what's this mem use? Oh, right, yeah, okay. So here's an abbreviation. The empty string can be an abbreviation for memory 0. So in all these cases, there's effectively a sort of an invisible memory 0 at the beginning. So yeah, there's a lot of abbreviations at play here. So I wonder. Well, the relevant thing is this, that all these places where we're reading a single instruction, that's actually an abbreviation for offset followed by an expression which can be an arbitrary number of instructions. So I guess, although here offset has only got, I mean, this is a single, this is a folded instruction because they've put brackets around it. But I don't believe it needs to be like here. Offset can be followed by expra. Yeah, and the expressions don't have parentheses around them. It's just that, you can have a folded expression, which is any plain instruction. You can just insert parentheses around it like that. So, well, so this looks like something that I can probably fix. Let's stick this in here. Data. So hopefully we'll see that that's correctly failing once the tests finish. So yeah, I'm going to have to amend the parser a bit here. I mean, at least in the very first instance, well, in fact, these first 3 instances, these first 4 instances, oh, hold on. No, sorry. I was looking at the wrong thing. In these instances, they're just going to be zeros anyway. But so here, offset is parsed as a single instruction. So does that mean, if we look in the interpreter, data, oh no, not that. Okay, what do I, oh, memory data. What? Well, I suppose these only have an effect during module instantiation, so it's probably in here. Build memory from the memory and the datas. So let's just see what that. So yeah, at the moment this just uses evaluate instruction, and that will be okay for now, but I think in general it's not going to be okay. This actually needs to be an expression, and this is just a sort of a special case of that where there's only a single instruction. So what I'm going to do, yeah, pending test fails successfully. So the first thing I'm going to do is relax this and allow this to be evaluate expression, which I think has got the same, yeah, it's got the same signature. So I'm going to change this to evaluate expression, you know, on the understanding that the offset here is actually an expression that's going to be evaluated. And then I'll make that true in the parser. So for now, well, can this just be parse expression? Is that too silly? Well, it is, because that doesn't exist. Is it instructions? I think it is, actually. Yes. So let's make another tab here. So yeah, I mean, I've got a bit of an impedance mismatch between the language in the parser and the language in the interpreter, but essentially now this is going to be multiple instructions and this is going to be able to deal with multiple instructions. So I'm just going to rerun all the tests and check that I haven't broken anything, but that seems like a change in the correct direction to me. And I can link to this part of the spec. Etienne was complaining, not complaining. I'm sorry, Etienne, you weren't complaining. You were a little bit, but Etienne made a friendly suggestion that maybe I could try, instead of doing like git commit message, blah, and then immediately doing git commit amend, he suggested that maybe I could do git commit edit with a message, because then I can do my normal thing of writing a message here and then immediately drop into the editor to write the rest of the commit message. So I'm going to try that. I'll see how I get on. I don't know whether this habit will stick, but several people have asked / complained about me, about this slightly weird thing I do where I make a commit on the command line and then I immediately amend it and write more text. So if people find it distracting and annoying, then I suppose I should train myself out of it. So this is the beginning of me trying to train myself out of it. Thank you for the suggestion, Etienne. I do appreciate it. So what am I going to write here? Git commit edit message. So this is something like support multiple instructions in, and then what does it look like? Let's just say data. Well, no, let's just say data offsets. Oh, there we go. And now I can say the syntax, the single instruction syntax we're currently parsing is an abbreviation for offset blah. Let's link to this, which supports an arbitrary number of instructions, not just one. Before we can support the unabbreviated form, we need the interpreter to be able to handle the presence of potentially many instructions at this point in the AST. Okay, well that wasn't so bad. I can imagine myself typing that command again. Okay, so now obviously we haven't changed anything about this. It's still failing in the same way because it's finding that offset and it doesn't know what to do with it. So now think about what I want to do here. So after we've read data, there's an optional ID. We haven't even thought about that yet, but well, up until this point, we don't have an ID, so I won't worry about that yet. But what I will worry about is the possibility that you're going to have offset there. So we always have to read list at this point, I think. Yeah, I mean, ignoring mem use for now because we haven't seen that yet. So I think what I'm going to do is, yeah, I mean, this isn't actually a very interesting abbreviation, is it? It's like you're going to read a list and either it's got offset at the beginning, in which case you throw it away and read the rest of it, or you just read all of it. So I think what I'm going to do is something like this. So read list do. Do I want to do a case here? Case peak in memory. No, offset. We're going to read that. Yeah, actually, because the strictly the correct thing to do here is to parse instructions at this point, else parse instruction. Like if the keyword offset isn't there, then really, for the sake of correctness, we should only read a single instruction at this point. So I think that's the right thing to do for reading an offset. I mean, I've got a sort of can read list helper that I could use to make this decision before we've tried to read the list, but I think it's such a simple abbreviation that it doesn't matter in this case. Okay, so now we've got a little bit further, but now we're choking on the memory. So so this can be maybe support. In fact, I'm not gonna embellish. No, I am. See, look, I've got to make a decision up. This is partly why I do the amending thing, is because it allows me to make a separate later decision about whether I want to write more, and sometimes I don't, whereas I just found myself there needing to think about it before I even wrote the headline of the commit, but that's okay. So so we're going to say support unabbreviated syntax for data offset, data segment offset. And let's say when the offset atom is not present, we should only read a single instruction, since, well, let's say we must read exactly one instruction, since that's the only thing permitted by that particular abbreviation. Okay, that's all right. So we've got this far, and now I've got to try and the drop frame situation is, if anything, getting worse. Don't get distracted, Tom. Okay, we've got to try and read this, which up until now I've been ignoring. So what does this look like? Mem use, memory, and then a memory ID which defaults to 0. So this looks like every other kind of ID that we've ever read. So we just need to be prepared to, I mean, not paying any attention to the fact that these are actually two different syntactic categories here, that like if you don't provide memuse and offset, then inherently you've got apparently a passive mode data segment as opposed to an active one. I don't really know. Well, I don't at all know what the difference between those two things is. Oh, Chris says, I often write commit messages back to front, body first and headline last. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I do, it's not uncommon for me to go back as I'm writing the body, sort of come up with a particular way of explaining it, or come up with a new noun or whatever that I realize needs to go in the commit message. So I do quite often go up and edit that first line, but yeah, as you can see, my habit is to go straight in with at least an attempt at the headline to see if it's possible for me to, if I can clarify my thoughts well enough up front to be able to write, 80 characters or whatever, 70, however many. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work. So yeah, so I don't know what the difference between active and passive is, but at the moment it's just like you either do provide a memuse and an offset. I guess it's the presence of the offset that characterizes it as being active mode. But I don't really know what that means. Given that memuse is optional is what I mean. This can just be epsilon, so it's whether offset is present or not that makes this decision as far as the parser is concerned. So, but before reading the offset, we have to try to read memory. So I'm going to say like, if can read list starting with memory, see, I'm not really sure what to do with this, but does read list? Yeah, starting with. So that'll descend into the list, and then yeah, there's just a single ID. I still don't have a helper for this. I only have myself to blame for that, but that's what we've got so far. I don't have anything to do with that yet. I mean, what I would like to do is to get it parsing, well, ideally, this whole file successfully, so that I'm at least supporting whatever subset of the syntax is actually used in this file, and then I'll worry about the semantics of it. So for now, I'm just going to throw that away, in the hope that that provokes a slightly different parser error. 391. What is I? Well, that was really helpful, wasn't it? Okay. Oh, well, that's not really what I mean, is it? Oh, maybe I should be using parse index for this. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Or is it read index? Oh, yeah, crap, I have to give it a context. Okay, yeah, so right now, I don't have a great way. Look, it occurs to me now, I hadn't thought about this before, but look, this parse index thing, syntactically, oh, hold on. Yeah, I was getting confused between this ID and this index, but it's not the ID that I'm trying to read, it's the index, which unfortunately contains ID, which is a recipe for me to get confused. But you see, this bit of code here is actually not right, because this is just saying if it doesn't start with $, then it's a base 10 number. But that's not true, because all of these indexes can be either an ID, so something that starts with $, or it can be a U32. And the syntax of, what you see here, U32, is that it's either a base 10 number, which is this num production here, or it's a hex number, which is this hex num production here, and it's the presence of the OX at the beginning that distinguishes those two things, and I'm not even trying to read that at the moment. So I expect, well, I think I am actually going to try to do this properly. I think I am going to use this as a forcing function. I think I am going to call parse index here. I think that's right. Yeah. Because, I mean, that's going to give me a failure here, and that's going to force me to make sure that that the memories are that they're put into the identifier context, because otherwise it's just, I'm just making more work for myself in the future. But I think it's actually going to choke at this point, because, well, the problem is it's probably not going to choke, because Ruby, yeah. Damn, okay. Well, I mean, I can still fix it, can't I? But I much prefer to fix stuff when I know I've got a failing test. Right, good point. We don't even have memories at the moment. Okay, well, even though I just said that I was going to use that as a forcing function, having realized that it's also not going to fail on this, I think I am just I'm going to let it just plow through, read that single index. Well, why don't I so I think this is the same as what I've got down here, essentially. It's like, this is what we want it to be. Right now we're just throwing it away. Okay, so what's happened there? That error makes it sound like, so it makes it sound like inside a read list, potentially this one, well, why don't I just look at the error message? 395. Oh no, it's actually inside that one. Okay. So it's called read list with something that's not a list. Not a list. I mean, maybe error messages aren't a terrible idea. D1. Oh, okay. All right. It's got this far. Okay. Well, that's fine. That makes sense. Okay. So why don't I commit what I've got? So this is, I'm not going to write a body for this one. This is just read memory blah when parsing a data segment. Oh, I do want a body for this. We can't call parse index to read the index yet because we don't have a memories index space in the identifier context. Once data.wast is parsing successfully, I'll come back and fix this up. Okay. Maybe I should just add this. Make read list error message more helpful. One of them. Okay. Fine. So now we've dealt with apparently all of this syntactically, and now we've got to deal with this, which is just there's an ID. So this one I think really is one of these. Sorry, I should have just copied one of these. Read data. What's parse memory data? Oh, this is for an abbreviation, I think. Yeah. Oh God, I shouldn't think about that too hard. Because that's going to probably need to support at least some of the same abbreviations that we have here. So this is okay. So now we can read an ID if present. Let's see how far that gets us. Okay. Read list memory. Okay. So hold on, where's that exception coming from? 513. Is that right? Yeah, parse import. So maybe it's one of these. Puts parsing import. Import spectest memory 1. So yeah, this is the problem. So at the moment, import module name, the thing being imported, and then it was expecting this atom to be either func or global, but obviously we need another case here for memory. Memory. Okay, so here we had to parse a type use. Here we had to parse a global type. What do we have to parse here? So this isn't any kind of abbreviation. This is just a conventional top-level import. So import from spectest the name memory, and this is some kind of type, mem type. So that's the same. Oh, no, it's not. I was going to say it's the same as what we just parsed, but this is a... So we parse some limits. you know, this is either a min and a max or just a min. Now, we've already had to do this somewhere. Oh yeah, but it's not, they're not labeled that way. Okay, well, I'm just gonna have to either remember or find. Maybe it's some other memory related thing. Oh yeah, there we go. Parse memory sizes. Looks like we've already. If can read list starting with data. So yeah, I think this is an abbreviation where there can be a sort of an inline. Oh yeah, I was just talking about that sort of inline memory segment, or inline data segment in the memory declaration. But it certainly looks like parse memory sizes is the thing that I want here. We've just repeatedly parse integers, and then we hope that we either get 1 or 2. So for now, I'll just inline that here. Doesn't seem to be any desire to associate that with an ID here, so I'll just ignore it. I mean, I'm not ignoring things, you know, it wouldn't be difficult for me to just copy and paste this in here, but I'm just trying to resist the temptation to put things in when I don't have any motivation to do it, because that helps me to prevent just, you know, locking myself into some assumptions that turn out to not be right. So this is, now we're supporting sort of memory imports, essentially. Yeah, and then this mem type is sort of a bit pointless. I don't understand why this even has a production. Like, it's just limits. Okay. Well, let's see if that's at least advanced the situation. It has. Okay, so we're now successfully importing it. So okay, so there were 2 problems there, weren't there? This one, and again, I'm not going to write I've already decided I'm not writing a body for this one. Support IDs. Yeah. Support IDs in data segments. Changed my mind. Again, we're just discarding this for now, but we'll presumably need it at some future point. Well, let's say support, let's just say parse IDs. See, there you go, Chris. I edited that message. And this one is, let's say, this one I am going to say support memory import descriptions. No, I'm not. Parse. After memory, after the memory atom is a mem type, which is just a minimum and optional maximum yeah, page count for the memory. We can already parse those because of earlier tests which used inline abbreviations for data segments inside memory segments. I think that's true. I just wanted to refer to this. Okay. So we've now ostensibly parsed it, but we are not parsing even a single test. Undefined method each for what is clearly just a single instruction. So this feels related to the change I made earlier about, yeah, having an expression here. So, oh, yeah, well, I made a stupid error, didn't I? I've just realized that should have been obvious to me. That when I said here, like, oh, we should be able to parse multiple instructions or just one. Obviously, if you only parse one, you need to wrap it in an array. But why didn't any of the tests, why didn't any of the other tests fail? That's really odd. Maybe I just forgot to run them. I'm very suspicious about that. Let's see, maybe I did actually break another test because it feels like I should have done. Yes. All right. Well, that was, oh no, hold on. Oh yeah. Memory.wast. Okay. Well, that was very sloppy of me. I apologize. What I'm going to do is yeah, I think it is this one. I'm going to go back and tweak that because I think this was where this is where the bad thing happened. Yes. Let's just confirm that. So if I back out that change, yeah, it's fine. Okay. So I need to just fix this here because I broke it here. So let's just confirm that that's okay now. Yeah. Oh, okay. Cool. Okay. It never happened. So I'm still quite distracted by how poor the dropped frames are. I mean, I assume this is just like internet weather. I don't think there's anything wrong on my laptop. As far as I can tell, the CPU utilization is very low. So I think it's just my connection to YouTube is unusually bad today. So that's a little bit frustrating, but there's nothing I can do about that. So I'm just going to continue to try to accept it. It's just a little bit irritating. Okay, so now do we have a more meaningful failure message? Okay, that's a bit more like it. All right, so still didn't make any test pass. So this first one, undefined method value for nil. So, okay. So what is the very first test and why are we failing it? So actually, I hadn't read this comment before, but actually all of this stuff is just checking that we're able to successfully parse this syntax. So when I was saying before, oh, we'll have to come back and deal with the semantics of all of this stuff, turns out we don't need to because because there are no assertions associated with this module. The implicit assertion is, can you parse it successfully? And I have now done that. So in a way, there is a test parsing, but we don't get any green dots for it. So this is all like no actual assertions here. In fact, are there any assertions in here that I support? I don't implement assert invalid. No. Okay. Well, that's a bit awkward. Because actually I'm never going to get a green dot, or at least not right now, because none of these, there are no assertions in here. However, this is causing a problem during module instantiation. So where is this? Let's try and see. 311. That's too far down. 212. Right, yeah, so this is during module instantiation. We call build memory. We give it all the memories and we give it all the datas. Well, we give it the one memory actually. I mean, have I really thought about, and the answer is no, I haven't thought about what these memories are actually supposed to, what these data things are doing. I mean, my understanding of this is that this is this initializes a memory called $m with one page in it. And then all of these are just about splatting data into that memory. And in all of these ones, we're specifying which memory we're talking about, which is, I think the spec says that you're only allowed one memory anyway. So all of this rubbish about being able to specify the index of the memory, I said at some point I'm going to be forced to deal with this, and I was imagining that we're going to see potentially different hexadecimal numbers here, but I now realize that we're not, because I think the memory index always has to be 0. So I'm just going to write that down as a thing to do. Like all of these lists, I keep starting new lists because the old one has just turned into a list of refactorings that I should do probably. And then, it's almost like the life cycle of these lists is that they always end with like, oh, now this is just a list of potential refactorings. But here it'd be like, maybe it can go in the parser, leisurely parser refactoring. Do I have like AST? It's not even really refactoring. I'm just going to put it up here because this isn't refactoring. There's essentially a bug in the parser. When parsing indexes, support hex notation, i.e. OXOO instead of, since this is a legitimate way of writing a U32. Okay. Well, I was going to say I'll try to remember to do that. What I'll do is just leave it there, and one day I'll do it. But the tests aren't going to force me to do it, I guess is what I'm saying. At least not for memory. Maybe there'll be a test that does, because the parse index code is shared, so maybe I'll already be forced to do that. E.g. c data.wast. Line 12. Line 12. There we go. All right. Now I'll just need to, I'll just be able to click, go straight there. So luxurious. Okay. All right. So where's this momentum that I was speaking of that I promised Chris? I feel like I have to regain it. Okay. So this is having a problem inside evaluate expression. So, okay, I'll get this. I need to just have some kind of, so let's say building memory, memory inspect, data's inspect. Okay, so let's at least see where we are. So it looks like we've successfully built a few memories. You know, it says building memory a few times here. But this one is problematic. So string nil, minimum size 1, maximum size nil, data's. So I assume that we're trying to instantiate this module, and one of these is causing a problem. Just look at this. I'm just looking to see if I can anticipate what the problem might be. I mean, it's actually almost certainly not a problem that I'm ignoring the index here, because it's always going to have to refer to the only memory that there is in the module. So I don't think that is going to be a problem. But here the offset is a global get index 0, string a. So it's probably this, isn't it? And so I think maybe it's this issue that until now I didn't have any reason to actually populate, to actually pay attention to the imported globals, but it would appear that now I do need to do that. So I don't think that's going to be difficult. It's just that I didn't have a failing test until now. So this, sorry, I didn't say this explicitly, but this error suggests to me that it's when it's trying to find, you know, whatever the index of this global is, presumably 0. Yeah. It's just getting nil back. So now I've got to remember how that works. Presumably it's in build globals. Okay, so how does this work? I'm sorry, I'm going to need to just remind myself. Okay, yeah, it's this, isn't it? When we build functions, in fact, let me just copy this whole thing and then I can use that as a reference down here. I think we probably need a more general implementation of this, because it's going to be broadly the same for all of them. It's just that I don't know in what way they vary. So this bit here, functions.map do function, if function import nil, then function else actually import it. Like, that corresponds to this bit here, but I don't have a bit corresponding to this. So I'm defining all of the globals that are directly defined inside the hold on. Am I just talking nonsense? Because this is a global that's directly defined. So actually, I think maybe, although I am going to need to do this at some point, I think it's more that this is failing, but then fetch should be raising an exception, right? I'm a little confused there, I must admit. Let's leave this commented out here for now. Let's just say puts building globals. Globals. So let me just see. So building globals, empty array. That's not right, is it? So let me, at the moment, I'm assuming that it's this one that's causing the problem. So let me just let's copy that here. Global.get. So yeah, I'm assuming that this is where the problem's coming from. Let's see if that's true. Yes. Okay. So, oh, but this is a different error. Current module isn't set. Okay, so is this... Okay. So I think this is something where it's like, because up until now, the only expressions that have happened to appear inside these sort of memory initializers have been constant expressions. Well, I think which is a term of art in WebAssembly that doesn't apply here. But what I mean is like literally i32.const and so on. It hasn't mattered that there wasn't a current module set, but now it does matter. And in fact, the globals aren't even initialized until later on. So the fact that it's possible for a memory, that it's possible for a data segment to have a dynamic offset, well, maybe dynamic's not the right word because this is always going to be a constant, but the fact that it comes from a global makes things a little bit more complicated. Crap. I think maybe what this means is that you need to initialize I think maybe this needs to be a two-stage process where you need to create the memory as part of creating the module, because the module object doesn't even exist until this point. And then here where we've got initialize globals, I think we probably need like initialize memory, and that needs to come after initialize globals. Okay, so so actually what that means is I think this, the error I was seeing before, this was just leaking over from the previous module, because current module hadn't been reassigned yet. These are the globals from the previous module. And so I'm glad that I created this sort of isolated version of it that was able to show me that actually it's not set to anything. Maybe we should do that up here. Maybe this should say like, maybe we should nil out the current module until we've instantiated it. I think that might be a good idea, because that will, that will make the problem more obvious here. So I think I am going to do that. So let's say set current module to nil during construction of new module. And let's say, what do I want to say? This will prevent confusion when when module instantiation code accidentally runs too early and tries to evaluate an expression in the context of a module which does not yet exist. Not prior. Before this change, it was easy to be confused when this happened, because current module would still be pointing at the previously constructed module, which probably has nothing to do with the current one, at least when it's nil, the problem will be more obvious. And I'll say, ultimately, we need to do a better job of separating out the two stages of A, creating a module, and B, instantiating it, e.g. Setting all the globals. At the moment, they're both mixed together, but hopefully this change will make it easier to spot the places where they must be teased apart. And I think we are at one of those places right now, right? Like, I am going to need something like initialize memory. So let's just think about what this would look like. It's going to look a bit like build memory. So I think all of this is statically available, right? So I think there probably is a bit of a problem here when it comes to memories that have that sort of inline data segment. Like, what do we do in that case? Like here, string equals parse memory data. But then maybe that's all you're allowed to do. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe the abbreviation doesn't support this full fat data segment syntax. Maybe you're only allowed to say data followed by a string, and of course that's probably not the case because life is rarely that good. But at least I don't need to worry about it at the moment. So I think probably it's as simple as this, that we need to build memory, build globals, initialize globals, initialize memory, and this just needs, what's this going to need? It's going to need the memory, and it's going to need the datas, but the memory is, you know, here where it says result, that is the memory. So we don't need this anymore. So here, again, this is confusing. What it gets here is the AST node that describes the memory. And what it returns is an instance of, like a runtime instance of an actual memory. And then we'll need to pass that in to initialize memory so that it can iterate over all of these datas. I mean, do we need... No, we don't need to pass the memory in because at this point, well, because just as here, where we're doing evaluate expression, I mean, this is very similar, isn't it? It's a very similar problem. You can see that the code is almost identical here, apart from this thing that actually does the work, because setting a global is different to writing a string into memory. But otherwise, it's very similar. But my point was we don't actually need to do this because this can just be current module.memory. So it's like, I think it's okay to refer to the current module here because evaluate expression is implicitly depending on like being able to know what the current module is. So I think that's the thing to do. And so this just needs datas, mod datas. And where we build memory, we just take that out. And of course, we remove the word to do. So let's just see. Okay, well, at the very least, that's missing keyword datas. Oh. Okay, so I've got to remove this from here. Okay. Undefined method store for nil. Okay, well, whatever. I'll investigate that in a second, but what I want to know is, well, I don't want to know anything with all those putses in there. As in build globals. Okay, I got that one. I just forgot to save it. Okay, so yeah, what I want to know is, let's just stage out this change. Okay, so yeah, what I really want to know is this change good? Have I successfully split apart build memory into build memory and initialize memory? And obviously the test that was already failing, it's fine for it to continue failing, but what I want to know is all the stuff that was already passing still passing, or have I broken something again? Okay, pending test failed successfully. Okay, great. All right, so I think I should, yeah, I mean, it does slightly concern me that I've ended up in a situation where the current module doesn't have a memory. But that's probably because of this, I would imagine. So I think maybe this has been dealt with and now we're onto a separate problem. So that's enough of a narrative for me to feel like I can commit this change. Okay, so let's say separate the stages of building and initializing, of building a memory and initializing it with data. As with globals, there's a chicken and egg problem here. Memory is part of a module, so we can't create a module without one. But memory needs to be initialized. But the process of initializing memory involves evaluating data offset expressions, which needs to happen in the context of the current module, e.g., so that global variables can be read. And as with globals, the solution is to build an empty memory as part of the module and then fill it in after the module instance has been created. Okay, fine. So yeah, I've just merged back in some commented out stuff. I assume this is the same. Oh, well, actually, it'd be useful to run this local one. Right. So my hypothesis is correct, which is that this one is fine now. Presumably it's this one that's not fine. Let's find out. Yes. Okay, so this is a spec test problem. So this is expecting not only to have imported a global containing 666 from the spec test module, it's also expecting to have imported a memory. Now, I don't think that there's anything special about that memory. Let's just see. Right, so it has to have a specific size. But I think I've got most of the machinery necessary to make this work now. By which I mean, you know, I've already got, at the moment, like this is the, if I change this to foo, well, is that what it's getting? No, it's not even it's not even trying to import it. Okay, so there's two problems. One of them is that the memory in spectest. See, it's not being. Oh, actually, that's not. That's the wrong place, isn't it? It should be down in the exports. So here, if I change this to foo, does it try to import it? No. Okay, but in principle, this here could be in the same way that I've whacked in these globals here. This could be memory.new. In fact, why don't I just do this? Oh, I can just do memory from limits. Memory from limits. Minimum size, maximum size. And what's it denominated in? I think it's in pages, because that's what it is in the AST. Yeah, multiplied by bytes per page. So here, this needs to be 1, maximum size 2. So I think that is actually a legitimate... Oh, in fact, it should go before. I'm going to try and put these in the same order as they are here. So, you know, I haven't done these floating point numbers. I haven't done the table, but I'm doing memory now. So we now have a memory in the spectest module. However, we appear to be making no attempt whatsoever to import it, which is unfortunate. So let's say add exported, well, add memory to spectest exports. Again, I don't think there's any point. I don't think there's any point actually putting it into the module, because, as I said last time, I think only the code that executes within this module can even see any of these things. You can only see the stuff that's exported from the outside, and no code does run inside the spectest module. It exists only to export stuff. So I think, yeah, I need to, well, I was going to say I need to make it clearer that all of these are not important, but maybe I'll just learn that. Let's see what happens. If I make this same mistake again, I'll do something about the fact that all of these are, you know, essentially pointless. But yeah, I don't think I need to say any more than that. Okay, but of course, this doesn't do anything because we're not even trying. Okay, so I'm, you know, that makes me sort of glad that I started getting a grip on this spectest situation. I mean, obviously it hasn't really helped me because, well, why hasn't it helped me? It's because this import doesn't do anything. And I think this really is the problem I was talking about before, is the fact that, well, no, I was talking about globals. This isn't a global, this is a memory. But I think it's the same problem, right? That we need the imports to come in here. Because the memory you end up with is either going to come from an import or it's going to come from the actual memory declaration. And again, this is just like with build functions, this is an unpleasant duplication of effort just because I don't have a good way of of dealing with the abbreviation. Oh, well, that's not really true. That's not really true. This business is because I don't have a good way of dealing with the abbreviations. In this case, it's just genuinely the case that functions come from two different places. They come from imports, whether explicit or abbreviations. Well, this is the abbreviation. Or they're defined directly, which is what we're doing here. And in memory, it's kind of the same thing. So this is like memory import equals imports.detect. Well, let's say, I mean, I guess this would be a syntax error. Like, I'm just thinking about the multiplicity of this. Like, you're really only allowed to have one of these. But let's, for the sake of argument, let's copy what's going on up here, which is, you know, this is memory imports, is import select, import in kind memory. So, and then we'll extract the module name and the name, and then we're saying, yeah, so this is all generic. Really, it's the only thing that's different is this. So this, you know, this should be pulled out into some kind of helper. Oops. Let's say extract helper for finding all imports. Well, yeah, for resolving imports of a particular type. So that's what we're doing there, is pulling out all the imports. And then maybe we can say case memory imports. So it's like in memory, we just return the memory. So in the case where there was a single import, we're just returning it. Well, I guess this is imported memory. So if there's one, we just return it. If there's none, then we do this. In fact, maybe this would be better off as like, because these two things are mutually exclusive. Either you import a memory and you don't declare one, or you don't import a memory and you do declare one. So maybe the thing we should do here is to say, like, here are the memory imports and here is the memory. And one valid way of doing it is like this. And the other way of doing it is like this. And in fact, it's okay for both of them to be nil, or for that to be empty and for this to be nil, actually, because then there just is no memory. But I think this is this probably best expresses the situation. Does this? I think I need to do this. Is that right? Yeah, that you can't do that. Yeah, so it needs to be like this. So that's okay. And the pattern, you can leave the brackets off, which is what I have done. So I think this is the right thing. Resolve all of the imported memories, of which there should be a maximum of 1. It should be 0 or 1. If there is indeed just 1, then we'll just return it here. Otherwise, we'll instantiate a new one. Hey! All 0 assertions are parsing. But actually, that was kind of useful. Like, it's surprising. Maybe not surprising, but I think this is the first time in a while that just getting a file to both parse all the way through and execute all the way through without any assertions has still been useful. But this has actually forced my hand in several ways. So I mustn't forget to move this to the list of parsing. Oh. Well, that was premature, wasn't it? Because actually, data.wast is only... Sorry, I got overexcited. It's only that one. So let's try... Oh yeah, okay, great. So, although I was premature, I also, by pure luck, was also correct. So, I think that's okay. So what's the change here? Okay. So I actually didn't need that. Well, I mean, I will at some point, but not right now. Yes, okay. So this is something like add support for imported memories. And let's just say the case in build memory enforces the constraint that there must be at most a single memory, either a single import. I mean, I think this is true. Let me just run all the tests while I'm patting myself on the back for this. Either a single import and no explicit, well, and no declared and no memory declaration, or an optional memory declaration and no import. Okay. Well, I haven't broken anything. So that's good. Okay. Well, there we go. I've got test parsing, or, you know, no assertions, but another one of these files has been crossed off the list. Let's pick another one and see how far I can get. I'm concerned about the increasingly unfavorable internet weather, I assume. Or maybe it's just YouTube being weird. But yeah, the number of drop frames is verging on alarming. I'm sure that this stream is no longer pleasant to watch. So that's a bit unfortunate. Oh well. Okay. So what have we got? Select, bulk, elem. Select some problem with identifier context. Okay. Let's... Did I remember to... No, like, amazingly, despite having made this change, I forgot to include it. Okay, there we go. How frustrating. Okay, so now, and that's definitely not already there, yeah. Okay, so what is the problem with this one? Undefined method index for no, yeah, okay. So I understand why I thought it was a problem with the identifier context. Needs ref.now, func, ref extends, so problem with identifier context. So I think, yeah, I think all of these are already in some sense implemented. Like I can parse them. I don't really know what they do. Certainly ref extern, I've got no idea. I kind of know what ref.null is. Okay, so where's this gone wrong? So, you know, it's during parsing it's gone wrong. So that gives me somewhere to begin. It's going to be in the AST parser somewhere. What will we deep down inside here? Parse script, parse module, parse text fields, parse function. Okay, so that's good enough. So let's say parsing function s_expression.inspect. So let's see, where is this falling down? Okay, so it's happily parsed at least some functions. That's what we want. But sadly not all of them. So here we go, select func ref, extern ref, as select first. Oops. As loop mid. So we've parsed at least up until here. As if then, as if else, as br table last. Okay, we've parsed all the way down to here. $func. And then this is the problem, func export as call indirect first. Okay, so so I think the export is something that we do in a clumsy way support, although I notice now that these have still got those, the strings haven't been parsed properly, so I think maybe I'm going to fix that while I notice it. So why is that happening? Because parse string is supposed to... yeah, I'm confused about that. That doesn't make sense to me. That is weird. Okay, well, I won't dwell on that for now, but it does make me a little bit nervous to see this, because this string shouldn't have quotes in it. Okay, anyway. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. This has not been parsed. Okay, never mind. Okay, my brain just wasn't working properly. This is the output of the S expression parser, which doesn't know how to deal with this. Or at least it doesn't deal with it. It just leaves it as is. So yeah, that's exactly what I should expect to see. I just wasn't expecting it. We're up here and we haven't done any of this stuff. Okay. And so this is failing to... inside parse instruction, okay, let's say so call indirect $t, and then it's saying undefined method index. So the two things it could potentially be trying to look up here are t and check. So one or the other of those, it's saying undefined method index for nil. So that's line 357. Yeah, inside parse index, and we are calling that from here. Okay, so yes. It's trying to refer to table T, which understandably it can't, because I don't think I've got a tables. And I'm pretty sure that if I change this to context.tables, then a bad thing will happen, because I don't think there is one. So yeah, it's just, now it's just saying that's not even a thing. So, okay, we're going to have to introduce, I've been waiting for an opportunity to need this, and here we go, it is needed. So we're going to have to do this. Let's just look briefly in the definition of an identifier context. Identifier context. Types, functions, globals, locals, labels, type defs. Okay, so now I want to add tables, which comes here. And here. Okay, so now at least we should see it complaining about, yeah, unhandled exception. Yes, it has failed to find $t in an empty table context. We're not doing anything to populate that. But I can start adding those things. So this is add tables index space to let's do this first. I was just pausing there because I realized when did I actually do this for? Yeah, I guess it was, I did it without ceremony there, but I think typically what I've done is actually announce this in a commit message. Add select.wast to pending tests. Not that every single change needs to be announced in a separate commit, but yeah, it slightly threw me off that I didn't do that last time, so I'll try and be vaguely consistent about that. So yeah, add tables index space to identifier context. Okay. And then I think I'll just fix up these. So this one, it's not really needed, is it? But I think I might as well. I know I'm just making up the rules as I go along here, but I feel like it would be bloody minded in the extreme for me to not fix this up now that that exists. Because these were outstanding to-dos, so I think that is okay. Like I would have done this already if context.tables had existed. So let's say use context.tables. When parsing table indexes. Yeah, I don't think there was anything else I wanted to say about that. I mean, maybe I should. I'm just going to drop that. After the debacle last time of how many stash entries I had, I'm going to try and be a bit more hygienic about that now. Let's just check I haven't broken anything. But I shouldn't have, because those, I've only changed lines of code that were already comprehensively broken in the first place, so I can only assume that this code was not in fact... Well, it was being called, actually. Because I wouldn't have added it otherwise, but clearly nobody was... Oh... Unhandled exception. Okay, well, maybe I was too enthusiastic. So which one of these was the problem then? Because if it was just this one, then I don't care about that. Yeah, let's see. So, yeah, me sort of speculatively making that change and hoping that it wasn't going to cause a problem was overly optimistic, because it did cause a problem. So let's amend this. When parsing table index in call in direct. So like specifically. Right, okay, so that's okay. So yeah, I'm trying to make a test here that's only interacting with select.wast, right? And that's, yeah, I overreached before, so it's just this one. And maybe I should, maybe I do want to write here. There's another place in the parser. Where is it? It's in parse export, where we would like to use context.tables, or we would like to call parse index with context.tables, but because the table's index space is not yet populated, doing so there will break a currently parsing test. The change in this commit only affects select.wast, which is already pending. Okay. It's called select.wast, isn't it? Yes. Okay. So as my drop frames percentage creeps ever upwards, it's now at 67%. So 2 out of the 3 frames are not managing to make it to you. So if it goes much higher, I think I should probably just stop streaming because it's probably already unwatchable. So I apologize. And not just for the usual reasons. I said I wanted to get to 23 commits, didn't I? I'm at 13 commits. I don't think I'm going to hit the 1,000 mark unless the drop frame rate significantly improves, because I don't want to keep streaming if it's unwatchable, because the whole point of this project is to produce videos, not to produce a WebAssembly interpreter. Anyway, sorry about the meta chat. Right, so now I assume, I think with some justification, that this exception is coming from, oh yeah, well, we've already seen it comes from not being able to find that identifier in the context.tables index space, and that's because it's completely unpopulated. So what we want is, in build initial context, we want to pay attention to the identifiers of tables. So we've already got the code to do it. It's basically exactly the same as this, right? We read table. If there's an ID, then we read it. Oh yeah, I was like hesitating slightly, where I was like, well, but what if there isn't? What if name is nil? But then I think we do still need to populate it. I think that's the, it needs to take up a slot. Yeah, we have to. Yeah, because then that increases, even if this one doesn't have an identifier and it's in position 0, the next one needs to be in position 1. So regardless of whether we're filling in nil here or not, we do have to fill something in. So this is, fortunately, the code I have previously written is correct. So we read the table atom, we read the name of the table, we discard the rest of the S expression that we're inside, because we're inside this list here. So we don't care what the rest of this says. We just want the juicy ID, which is exactly what this clause is saying here, is like ... we don't care. And then this needs to be tables. And I think that's probably it. So I'm sort of expecting that to work, or at least to change. Not export, select. Hey! Nice. Okay, well, that wasn't too difficult. Yeah, that turned out to be a simple change, didn't it? My initial diagnosis was good. That diagnosis being some problem with identifier context. So I'm quite pleased about that. Let's take this out and put it in. Let's add everything so that I don't forget to do that. And so, yeah, what is this? Populate initial identifier context with table IDs. Well, let's say populate tables index space of initial identifier context. Yes. And then I suppose the question here is, that thing I did before that broke stuff, is it now safe for me to do this? Because if it is, I think I'd rather just do it, as opposed to just leaving a pointless... Well, it was exports that was the problem, right? I'll just let the whole thing run. But export seems to be parsing now. Let's see if there are any other problems. But yeah, I don't particularly relish the idea of intentionally leaving a problem for myself in the future. I'd rather just get rid of it now. So let's speculatively get ready to commit this. So this is say something like yeah, it's going to be a bit like this, isn't it? Use context tables when parsing table index in, well, this time it's going to be not in an instruction, but in a method when we're parsing exports specifically. Yeah, that seems happy now. And let's just say it's safe to do this now that we're populating the table's index space of the initial identifier context. Okay. All right. Done. Drop frames isn't looking very good. Really don't know what to do about that. Let's try one more, and then I think I'll probably wrap it because, yeah, because I don't want to produce hours of unwatchable video. God forbid. Okay, so let's see what the problem with bulk.wast is. Always with the parser. Oh, okay, so this is, I was going to say this is a new problem, but maybe it's just a new manifestation of a problem. So this is in parse data. I'm glad you enjoyed that, Nat. Is it, Nat, can you tell me, is this, how unwatchable is this? Like, how bad is the frame rate of this? Like, is it unbearable, or is it basically fine? Because if the audio's okay, maybe it doesn't, you know, if the only thing that's suffering is the frame rate of my face, then that could be aesthetically an improvement for all I know. So I'll take your advice on how big a problem this is. So it's in... Okay. Well, if my face is choppy but the audio is smooth, then maybe it's okay. Like, this video is mostly static anyway, right? And as long as you can see what's going on in Vim, and I think, you know, 1 frame per second is probably enough for that, but it's just a shame. Rest assured that on this end, it's a smooth 60 frames per second. Okay, you say the typing is okay with a lower frame rate. Okay, thanks. Well, I'll stick with it for a little bit then. I'm just worried that I'm worried there's something wrong with it, basically. So I don't want to be in like a tender love situation where I'm talking for hours and hours and then I don't have there's no video. But I mean, I suppose as long as people can see this live, like they're the true super fans. And also I don't think anyone is going to want to watch the videos afterwards anyway. Anyway, let's not get sucked into that specific neurosis. I keep getting distracted because I just hate dealing with all this parser stuff, but it's got to be dealt with. Okay, not a list. Foo. All right, good error message, Tom. Thanks for that. 402, read list. So we're trying to parse a data segment. I haven't even looked at the file at bulk.wast yet, but there's obviously some kind of problem. Parsing data, foo, in read list, not a list. Right. So I know what the problem is there, which is that, or do I? Why are we trying to read a list? Are we always expecting there to be an offset? Yes. But actually, there isn't. So let me think about this. This is a little bit fiddly because, just ignoring the ID for now because we haven't even thought about that. When the parser is at this point, when it's consumed the data atom, and let's just assume we've dealt with the ID. Oh no, we have dealt with that. Sorry. Yeah, we needed to add that. So we've added the optional ID. So we ultimately need to make a decision about whether, even if we're not recording this anyway yet, whether this is active or passive mode, whatever the hell that means. And that decision is driven by... This offset is the only mandatory part of the active mode segment definition. But it can be preceded by a mem use, which is optional. So I think the decision is if we can read... Okay, so I think what we're going to say, if can read list starting with memory, because that's mem use, or can read list starting with offset. Oh, but the flipping offset... It doesn't have to start with offset. I think this should just be if can read list. I think that's what it comes down to, because offset can have... It can be an abbreviation, so it doesn't even necessarily start with offset. So this is the only mandatory component, and this offset atom is actually not guaranteed to be there. So I think the only way we can make this decision is if you've read the ID and you're sort of ready to read the data string, but there's a list in your way, then that means we're in an active mode data segment declaration. So I think all of this needs to go inside there, where it's like, if you can read a list, then we're going to force you to read a list in the form of the offset, and then potentially you might end up reading the mem use before that. But I think that this is the essential change that makes this read list optional, whereas previously that was mandatory. And so if we don't take this branch, then offset here is just going to be nil. And at the moment, that's what's going to indicate a passive mode data segment, whatever one of those is. So I think that's the change to the parser that is needed. He says it's still failing. Oh, look. Okay, a different problem. Hooray! So let's... I need a better workflow for this, don't I? Bulk.wast. Oh, it's just bulk. Add. And bulk.wast to pending tests. Okay. And then this change was yes. So this was support missing offset in data segment declaration. this indicates that the data segment is, well, let's say a missing offset indicates that this is what is it, passive mode? Yeah, passive mode data segment, whatever that is. We can't look for anything more specific than a list because of the both the because the memory part is optional, and the offset atom in the, well, these are all abbreviation concerns, so let's just be more explicit. And also I'm going to want to link to this. Sorry, I'm jumping around a bit here, but I'm just trying to marshal my thoughts. A missing offset indicates this is a passive mode data segment, whatever that is. We can't look for anything more specific than a list. Well, let's say we can't check anything more specific than is there a list, because because abbreviations mean that the memory part is optional and the offset atom in the offset and in the, let's say, otherwise required offset part is also optional. Yeah, I think that'll do. Okay. So yeah, I will just, I've made myself a bit paranoid before when I broke the tests because I wasn't running them frequently enough. So I'm just going to rerun them. But at the same time, in a different tab, think about what the problem is here. Okay, elem. So it's weird, isn't it? Because there's, I'm not sure why this is causing a problem all of a sudden. Like, this is right at the top of the file, so why wasn't that causing a problem before? But clearly one of those is causing a problem. And, you know, the world is a mysterious place. Okay, so this was in, oh, in build initial context. That's interesting. Okay, so maybe, no, I don't know what the end of that sentence is. So I know that I've got limited support for elem in other places, but clearly not here. Let's just see. Let's say. Let's just make it clear to ourselves where this is actually falling over. So yeah, indeed it is this elem.func ref. Hold on, I'm looking at the wrong file. What is wrong with me? I should have slightly better interrogated what the source of the problem was there. But see, I thought I'd already... I suppose I wasn't referring to this to understand the problem last time, so I just forgot that it was out of date. Okay, so... Right, I just, I just used my intuition to guess what the problem was here without actually looking at the code that was causing it. But now I want to see what the code is that's causing it. So here we go. Memory data. So it's happy with those. I guess this was the problem, right? It was trying to read data foo, and it was like, where's the offset? And there isn't one. So we had previously conked out at this point. We have now powered through and conked out at this point because it doesn't know what this is. elem.func ref. Right, so this is... I think this is the first time we've seen a top level elem. And actually, that was the problem for elem.wast, was that we didn't have any support for them. So here you can see we'll need effectively full support for them. I'm tempted to get it working here because, I was going to say there aren't very many of them, but that's not right, is it? Because there are a lot of them there. Nonetheless, I suspect that getting it working here is going to be less of a stress test. Oh, look, they're element related. It's like elem.drop. Don't know what that does. Okay. I mean, I think I'm just going to have to engage with it, aren't I? The thing is, I think I've implemented memory fill, so I think that's why this test is on my list of things that it should, in principle, be able to get working, because do we really not have memory.fill? No, I suppose not. Yeah, needs memory.fill. Okay, well, I mean, we haven't got to that yet. I'm unsure about whether to progress with this or to switch over to looking at elem, because this isn't going to require me to do any memory related shenanigans. It's just going to... Let's see. Does other stuff in here look like I should be able to do it? Table.init. I mean, I think I'm going to need to get all this working, aren't I? Well, I mean, this was the next thing on my list anyway, but I think I need to understand what elements are. So I think I slightly grudgingly, I think I am going to switch over to this and then come back to the memory fill stuff, because getting elements working is a sort of a prerequisite, and it's, it's just the same problem here. It doesn't know what elem.func ref is. So let's add that to the test. In fact, I'm going to sort of prepend it. Add elem.wast to pending tests, and I'll just say it looks like I'm going to need to get elem working for bulk.wast anyway, so I might as well switch over to making elem.wast parse first, and then I can come back to bulk.wast afterwards. Oh, well, that's a shame. Okay, well, what the hell is this? I know I've already got some... Oh, well, I mean, I guess this does actually answer it, doesn't it? I've got parse elements here. So when we're parsing a table, it says table. And by the way, I mean, what even is a table? I only very dimly remember it, but I think these are the things that indirect function calls indirect through. So you can make a table which contains function references. And I mean, maybe it has some other application, but the only one I've seen so far is with call indirect. So you can make a table, you can stick references to a bunch of functions into it, and then call indirect is able to, I think, take a runtime argument that says, like an operand from the call stack, from the operand stack, not the call stack, that is able to say, I want to call the function, I'm going to pop the number 3 off of the stack, and then that's going to index into this table, and I'm going to use entry number 3 in the table to decide what function I'm calling, basically. So you can use that as like a dispatch table or whatever. And so when we're reading one of those tables, we can read the table atom, we can read an ID for that table if it has one. We can read the sort of inline export abbreviation for that table if it's there. This could clearly be extracted into a helper. Let's think about that. Interpreter, extract parser helper for parsing inline export abbreviations for now. Okay, so we can read the exports. Then this is repeatedly parse integers, which is a little bit suspicious because it appears to be ignoring them. Don't know what they are, but parse as many integers as you can, and then read the word funcref. Let's just have a look at this, because this must have been as part of something like call indirect elem. Okay, the reason I'm doing this is just to help me remember in 500 levels of scare quotes how these things work. So is this one of my parsing tests? I could have sworn that it was. Oh no. Okay. So also call indirect doesn't work. It feels like it should, because call indirect is implemented, right? So that wasn't on my list. Proper elem support, comma, who knows what else. Okay, so that's, for whatever reason, I just shied away from implementing this because I obviously wasn't ready. When then? So parse elements. So I'm just trying to figure out what test might have cared about this. Oh, I can't even remember. This was back in November. What even the file name would have been that had the. This looks like I was just right in the middle of loads of refactoring, so this is actually not particularly useful. So it was starting with elem. Okay. Also not super helpful. Let's try this. I'm just trying to find the point in time when I thought this was necessary. Okay, so this was this was something that previously existed. How many of these am I going to need to escape? Those ones maybe? Yeah, okay. All right, here we go. So this, we implemented call indirect, memory.grow. But like, what test did this make pass? Local T, apparently. Okay. I just want to see an example of one that we've already... Okay, so I guess this is what we support is, yeah, this sort of inline... So my understanding of this is that this is saying we're declaring a table. It contains, it's a table of function references. So this, you know, this table has like a homogeneous element type essentially, which is that, you know, you can't have a mixture of different kinds of things in a table. They're all function references, and here they all are. There's actually only one. Same again here, although we're ignoring this because it's inside an assert invalid. So this is the only place where that was actually being used. So here we've got the same business. Oh, let's call indirect. Well, maybe that's useful because that just... Oh, no, forget it. Let's try and understand this. So this is saying, like, initialize a table called $T. I assume 10 is its... I'm assuming it's like its capacity. I assume this is like limits where you can have like a minimum and maximum size. I don't know. Maybe it's something else. But that's a number we're ignoring. And then this is a type that says this table is going to contain function references. So I guess here we're sort of saying we're talking about a table called T. So what does this mean? Does this just... This seems to me like this is introducing no elements, as is this, whereas this and this are introducing 4 elements each, but they're not specifying into what table. It says here passive and active. I don't really know what that means. But no, actually, I've got no idea. I was going to say my best guess is that they're just defaulting to the 0th table or the most recent table or something. But then I don't understand what this means, because the type of the elements in this table is funcref, and these aren't funcrefs. These are just funcs. I mean, I don't really know what a funcref is. I assume that there's some mechanism by which we can put item. Oh God. I assume there's some mechanism by which we can put functions sort of on the heap essentially and point at them. I assume that's what ref.func does, whereas these are sort of more directly just referencing, well, these are just labels. These are just names that will get... These get dereferenced by the parser, and they just get turned into indexes. So this will just be 0, and this will just be 1. Whereas I assume here that this is sort of a box that can contain a reference to a function. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, I think I need to read the specification because normally what I've been trying to do is just sort of understand how this is supposed to work by reading the tests. But here, I mean, it does say this is just syntax, but I don't know what this syntax means. Let's see. Is there an actual assertion? Okay, so we have a type def making a new type called out i32. So that's a function that returns, that has no arguments, and it just returns a single 32-bit integer. This is making a table that doesn't have a name, that just contains func refs. What is this doing? Do elements even necessarily have to go inside tables, or are they like independent entities? Or again, is this just referencing, is this saying at the 0th table or at the most recently defined table at index 7, I want to insert, well, I don't know what const i32a is. Oh, it's this function. Right, okay, so this is like a forward reference to this. Okay, which the parser has to make sure it's already pre-populated the initial identifier context with these identifiers so that when we parse this, we know what it's referring to, function 0. Okay, so maybe this is inserting references to those functions at indexes 7 and 9. Again, you can see these are expressions that we're going to have to be careful about when these get evaluated, just like for globals and just like for data segments, because of the offset also being an expression. I guess this is an offset. I guess this is exactly the same thing, actually. So this is like an offset into the table. So essentially, we've inserted references to two functions at offset 7 and 9 in that table, which has no name and is being implicitly referred to here. And then here, we're exporting a function called call7 that returns a 32-bit integer, and it indirectly calls, I guess we need to, I'm not sure why this is here, but I suppose that when there's an indirect call, we have to specify what the type of it is, or maybe optionally. And then we're saying call the function that is at index 7, which is going to be the one that returns 65. So call 7 should return 65. Call 9 should return 66. Call 7, 65. Call 9, 66. Okay. So I understand that. And then this is doing something more complicated involving ref.null to ensure that elements use expressions. Okay, well, this feels a little bit much, but I think I'm just going to try to work through it one thing at a time. Like, I've dealt with worse. It's just, I'm just so reluctant to get back into the parser, but like, I have to, don't I? Like, you can't write an interpreter without having to write a parser, but it's just so boring and so annoying to have to parse this stuff. But let's just get on with it. So this is specifically during build initial context. It's freaking out because it doesn't know, even though most of these are getting ignored, it doesn't even know how to ignore an elem. So let's just stick that in, and that'll shut up that aspect of it. And now in parse text fields, it's complaining. So So this is just ignore elem fields in build initial context. Let's just say we don't want to ignore these indefinitely, just while we're trying to make elem.wast parse successfully. Okay, so now it's basically the same deal here, isn't it? Excuse me. So in parse text fields, I mean, you know, we're going to need LMs in here. So that's basically just ignoring them there. Okay, still no joy. So this is something in parse index, ref.func. So I wonder where it might be, because if it's ignoring all these, so what's this inside? Oh, parse elements. Okay. Inside parse table. Oh, I wish I'd kept that. Parsing table as expression.inspect. So where exactly is this? So it's having trouble. This is clearly a more elaborate, where is it? Table. So I think this is it. Table T func ref, elem, ref.func f, ref.null func, ref.func g. So it's trying to parse ref.func f as an index, and it is not having any joy there. So I think I need to understand what the syntax of that is supposed to be, but for now, let's do something similar. Ignore elem fields in parse text fields. This really isn't saving me any time with over typing amend afterwards, because maybe if I just did this every time, and then maybe I need to do this every time, and then once Vim is open, then make a decision about whether I want to write more, rather than trying to anticipate that decision, because it's sort of unnecessary, isn't it? Again, just to get elem.wast closer to parsing. Okay. So let's look at the syntax of, you know, for now I'm just ignoring all of the top level LMs, but we're already trying to parse this in some detail because we support it in previous tests. In fact, I'll just for comfort, I'll leave that running while I'm trying to figure this out. So let's see what the actual syntax of this is. Yeah, another inconvenient abbreviation situation. The drop frames are getting even worse. It's becoming quite awful. So table definitions combined a symbolic table identifier. Like they've just got this very simple table production that says, oh, a table is just, you just say there's a table, it has an ID, and it has a table type. Easy. And the table type is limits. So yeah, those are the numbers, either a minimum or a minimum and a maximum, and then it has a ref type, which is either funcref or externref. It seems like funcref is the only one that we're really having to deal with at the moment. Okay, yeah, it looks like pending test failed successfully is what I wanted to see there. Okay. But, of course, all of the nightmare is hidden below the fold in the abbreviation section. An element segment can be given in line with a table definition, in which case its offset is 0 and the limits of the table type are inferred from the length of the given segment. Right. So so syntactically, what goes in here can either be a vector of element expressions or a vector of function IDs. What's an element expression? Does that syntactically look like elem? Yeah. Oh, look, it says a table use can be omitted defaulting to 0. If the table use is omitted, the func keyword can be omitted as well. Okay. So yeah, those LMs that don't specify a table index are talking about, are talking about table index 0. Oh God, okay. So yeah, we can tell syntactically that these are either LM lists or they're just function IDs, right? We can tell the difference between those things. So in this case, what are we looking at? Table $t funcref, that's the ref type, and then elem, and then here we're either getting, so what is this? Ref.funcf, ref.nullfunc, ref.funcg. I mean, these must be elem expras. Elem extra is supposed to begin with item. These don't begin with item. Oh yeah. As an abbreviation, a single instruction may appear in place of the offset of an active element segment or as an element expression. So yeah, the item is syntactically optional. So I suppose that means, well, so these are element expressions. What am I currently expecting to see? So we are supporting this sort of optional parse elements, and then it just assumes that we're in this case. So we've implemented this case, this one where we have a vector of function IDs. But it's not necessarily a vector of function IDs. It can be a vector of element expressions. Which are essentially anything else. Like it's an arbitrary expression if it starts with item. So this is like a, can read list situation again, right? Inside here, if can read list, then read all the element expressions, else so it's like repeatedly. So what does an element expression look like? Superficially, it looks like read list this is like if we can, then repeatedly do it. Starting with, but we can't do starting with because this is optional. So hold on, how did I've already forgotten how I did this recently. Yeah, it was like this. So I want something like that. So this is like read a list. If it starts with item, then we can have arbitrarily many, otherwise it's just one. I mean, at the moment, there's nothing really distinguishing these two cases in the AST. But actually, I mean, that's what the abbreviation says, is that you just wang in either a vector of element expressions or a vector of function IDs. So like, that's essentially what this elements is like an array, it's sort of polymorphic. We just need to be able to deal with either of those. We could potentially signal that more explicitly in the AST, but right now, I guess I can just roll with this. What do we do about synthesizing the 0 here? Oh, we're just throwing those away anyway. Like, we're not paying attention to the limits of the table type. So I think we can just ignore that. So I think this is let's see if this changes anything. Right. Okay. So now we're getting somewhere. We're trying to parse this ref.func, which is not supported. Okay, so I think what I've done here is probably correct. Yeah, it's like we choose the mode based on whether initially we're able to read a list or not, because you can't mix the two. Either you're going to have multiple elem expressions here, or you're going to have multiple function IDs. And we could just as well say if you can read a dollar or a digit, because then it's definitely an index. But I think this is the right way of doing it, saying like if there's a list, then we go into read the element expressions mode. Otherwise, we go into read the function indexes mode. Rather than putting this conditional, rather than lifting this repeatedly outside of the conditional, because then you could have a sort of heterogeneous collection of those two different kinds of things, which is not syntactically allowed. So I think this is probably right. Just think about how I want to describe it. Support missing offset. Yeah, so I mean, oh no, that wasn't it. Well, where did I implement this? Yeah, this was it. So yeah, it's a little bit different, isn't it? Yeah, it's in fact it's sufficiently different that that's not useful. So something like support. Let's say support element expression syntax in what, table declarations? Yeah, I'm not learning my lesson about this, am I? We previously supported a list of, well, supported parsing multiple function identifiers inside, what is it, table elem. But we also need to support parsing multiple element expressions, because that is also a valid abbreviation. I think that's probably it. Yeah, where was this commit where I did the, because I think I probably could reference that. Oh no, forget it. I think what I've done there is enough. So I think this is what I was thinking of. So I think I will say say as in blah, we can only check whether it's possible to read a list because abbreviations make the make the atom at the start of an element expression optional. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Okay. So I don't think I need that. I don't think this is giving me any value anymore. Ooh. Getting pretty close to... yeah, it was 23, wasn't it? So if I could stop after 2 more commits, then I could make it a nice even 1,000. Maybe I will just stop there, wherever I am, to make it a nice even 1,000, just because that's funny, and then pick it up wherever I'm from. So I've got to make these next 2 commits count. I mean, to be honest, the drop frames is still increasing, so I'm getting more and more anxious about the fact that the stream is just going to expire. So maybe it's not a bad idea to wrap it up sooner rather than later. Okay, so now, yeah, we need to support ref.func in parse instruction. And do we already support ref.something? Yeah, ref.now, ref.extern, in ref.func, read, ref.func.new. So it certainly looks like ref.func just takes well, let's just do this. Just trying to get it to parse at this stage. Still not there. This is why I need to be so relentless. Table, no matching pattern error. It's in read list. Parse text fields. Parse import. Okay. But so let's say support parsing the ref.func instruction. I think that's fine. I don't need to explain it in any more detail than that. Okay. Import spectest table. Okay. Okay. Import spectest table. So this is a table import. What can that look like syntactically? Imports. So table. It's annoying that these are in a different order, but I guess this is the order I've implemented them in. Function global, memory table, totally different. Table type. Okay. I don't think that parse table type exists. No, life is not that good. But what about in parse table? Let's just see what it does. So table type is the thing that comes after the ID. And currently, we're just ignoring some numbers and then reading funcref. So why don't we do that? And then we'll be allowed to do this. I've been a bit inconsistent here, haven't I? Global type. Let's call this table type. I'm not sure I like that, but I'm going to stick with my previous completely arbitrary decision for now. Okay, table.init. I mean, we're making progress here. That import did parse successfully, so so this was just extract parse table type helper. And this is just yeah, parse table import descriptions. And I think I don't really need to explain this because you can see what the syntax is. Yeah, I mean, what was this? Yeah, I don't think there was really any point in explaining that there. Okay, I'm just going to leave that. I don't think it's... Oh no, that's 24 commits. I wasn't careful at all. Oh well. We can all celebrate. Woo. 1,000 commits. Crap. I accidentally did too many commits. Oh well. I'll just have to carry on then. Wow, what a letdown. I'm sorry, everyone. I didn't have the presence of mind to actually pay attention to the commits I was making there, but I don't think I really could have stopped at that point. That would be very strange. Table.init. Okay, well, I think I'm going to give this the same kind of treatment. And then in the parser, I think we're just going to have something along those lines. How does table.init work? This doesn't just take a single thing. So let's see instructions. Table.init xy. Not sure about that, mate. I mean, I don't want to fixate on this too much because this is supposed to be wrong, but I should be able to parse it, right? I don't quite understand what's going on here. The table init instruction copies elements from a passive element segment into a table. I don't understand. Table copy copies elements from a source table region to a possibly overlapping destination region. Okay, so you give it 2 table indexes, that's fair enough. What is a table index? I don't really understand that. Table index copies elements from a passive element segment into a table. Okay, maybe I need to understand this. The initial contents of a table is uninitialized. Element segments can be used to initialize a subrange of a table from a static vector of elements. The elements component of a module defines a vector of element segments. Each element segment defines a reference type and a corresponding list of constant element expressions. Element segments have a mode: passive, active, declarative. Passive can be copied into a table using table.init. Active copies its elements into a table during instantiation. Okay, so that's if you specify a table index and a constant expression, then it gets auto-copied into that table, okay, which is what I think I'm doing. A declarative segment is not available at runtime, but merely serves to forward declare references that are formed in code with instructions like ref.func. What? Okay, I don't understand that. But the thing I'm most confused about here is the syntax. I mean, this is a folded instruction. So maybe that's what I need to think about. It's the fact that this table init takes 2 arguments. So maybe I should just not obsess over it and just read its 2 arguments. Read table init, table index, element index, job done. And then let the unfolding sort out the details. Okay, what's register? I mean, that does seem to have worked. Yeah, I haven't thought about this. So I think this is part of the test script syntax. Register module for imports. After a module is registered under a string name, it is available for importing in other modules. Yeah, and this is saying you don't need that anymore. Well, you don't need spectest anymore now that you've got the register command. So it seems like it's interesting actually that maybe these, at the moment I think actually this is getting exposed as like the exported name of a module. because that's what invoke uses, but I realize now that that's a different name than the one that we need to use for imports. Oh God. Okay, all right. Okay, just one small thing at a time. And this is support parsing the already forgotten it table.init instruction. Okay. Well, for this to work, well, I won't worry about that yet. Let's just worry about parsing it. In parse command, which is quite right, because it's right at the top level there. So let's say in register, so let's just do that. Def parse register. So what is it? This is only peeked into it. So let's just say repeatedly read register.new. So that will at least allow that to be parsed. So now we can't. Now this assertion is failing because it doesn't. Something doesn't work. But I think that's okay for now. Oops, wrong tab. So this is the register command. Okay. Well, I'm now on 1,003 commits, so I've already gone past where I wanted to go. And I'm just very concerned that the drop frames are still increasing. So I think I'm going to, in the interests of preserving the quality of, or at least the video quality of what is being recorded here, I think I'm going to stop. But what I want to leave it to do for myself here, which is like support the register command, remember that we need to separate module IDs used for invoke and module names used for import. And then what else have we recently added? Also flash out table.init, ref.func, so those are the only dummy things that I've added to the dummy which you added to AST last time. Let's put we. Why not? It makes me feel like I've got some company. So let me just run the tests and make sure that I haven't totally broken anything. I don't think I have. So that means that next time, Well, I'm just going to pick up. I'm going to pick up from where I am at the moment. I think maybe I should get into the habit of doing this more often. The reason why I end up stuck here for 6 hours is because I feel like I don't want to leave something in the middle, but actually it's perhaps healthier and more realistic to be willing to just, you know, I've got the parser working, or rather I've got sort of dummy stuff working in the parser, and now I can start chipping away at actually making the interpreter work, and that's gonna pull more information through the parser, right? Like, as I need stuff in order to make the interpreter do the right thing, that will force me to flesh out the AST nodes and stuff. So, okay. That is parsing. Let's push it and watch this tick over to hopefully 1003 commits. There we go, 1003. Hey, Jose, thank you for saying awesome content. I'm not sure that today has been particularly awesome content, but I appreciate your kindness. Thank you. Okay, so as prophesied, that we are on 1003 commits. Celebrate. I don't think there's gonna be another milestone. Well, maybe what I could do is try and stop on 1024, because that's a power of 2. So maybe that's more appropriate for this project. But you know, the sad truth is that GitHub is in the pay of big decimal, and they list all of their integers in base 10. So they sort of get to dictate what is significant and what isn't. But yeah, so like I said, I think next time I'm just gonna pick this up from where I've got to, and at least I much prefer being in the situation where there are not currently any parser errors. Oh no, it failed. This is the first time this has ever happened. Oh no. That's awful. Why has that happened? Well, I can't leave it like this. Oh no. Oh no. Data.wast. I mean, this is literally this is my worst nightmare. Okay, well, it's not that much of a nightmare. What I said previously was that part of the reason for having these tests on GitHub, well, running the tests on GitHub, is to check that my local copy of the WebAssembly executable tests hasn't got too far out of. And I mean, obviously I could just update my local one, but like, this is the canary in that coal mine, right? Because this is always checking out the newest version of the WebAssembly tests. Now this is telling me that data.wast. Oh, but see, that hasn't changed. Why are you saying that? Parse normal instruction result, no matching pattern error. But result does not appear. Oh, it was during select.wast. Okay. Sorry, I just misread the... Okay. I just misread it. Okay, so this did change on December 12th. So I think I probably do have an outdated version of this. Refactor parser, great. Okay, so yeah, there was a change here. Select.wast. So clearly there's a problem here. Flat syntax. Oh, that's call indirect. It's select. Okay, so this needs... Let me just copy this. I think I can fix this, and so I'm going to try to do it quickly, because I definitely don't want to leave it with the test failing. So the problem here is that it looks like you can specify a type here with a select, and I probably don't have support for that in the parser. Oh yeah, these are just instructions, right? If can read list starting with result, all right, so when we read a select instruction, we say, if you can read a list starting with result, then read it and consume its contents. Wow, I can't believe I fell at the final hurdle here. Okay, so select followed by nothing, select followed by not, select followed by another select. So it looks like my mistake was only reading a single result, because it looks like this is saying, if you can read a list starting with result, then do so. But this would suggest to me that you can actually have multiple results after a select. So I think this needs to be while, not if. But I also sort of suspect that for whatever reason, the parser wasn't, the previous WebAssembly parser wasn't able to parse this. Although that doesn't seem likely to be true. Anyway, whatever. Okay, so that parses that successfully now. So what I actually want to do now is go into the spec. So this was, I mean, why don't I, tag this and then pull this to update. So now some stuff has changed. So now let's run the tests again. Well, select. Ugh. Okay, let's get rid of this. All right. Okay, well, it had to happen at some point. I was essentially waiting for it to happen. But now that it has happened, I feel slightly sad about it. because this is running these tests up on GitHub is like the, you know, the little treat at the end, the little pudding at the end of this lengthy meal, and unfortunately it hasn't paid off this time. So I need to think about, well, it has paid off because it's forced me to notice that there's a problem, but I should maybe think about, what do I want to do about this? Okay, so this is looking more hopeful. So let's do this. Well, let's just say support parsing multiple results after select. Maybe it's results of a select instruction. Is of the right? Is it results of a select instruction? Like, what even is a select instruction? I'm not sure I can remember. I mean, I assume... No, I just don't know. Is it a control instruction? Select, yeah, there's multiple results. Selects one of its first two operands based on whether its third operand is 0 or not. It may include a value type. Okay, hold on. So what's this? Yeah, I mean, it's baffling. But this does appear to be a type. It selects one of its first two operands based on whether its third operand is 0 or not. So yeah, I mean, I guess this is all, this just operates on the stack, right? Interpreter, select. Yeah, so this is, it's like a conditional that uses values on the stack. It may include a value type determining the type of these operands. So although this says star, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that means. Like, why can you put arbitrarily many? I don't understand. And I'll just say that I don't understand. Of a select instruction, and I'll just say I don't understand what this means. How can a select have multiple results? I just don't know. When it can only return a single value from the operand stack. But the spec says it can. Says that multiple result types are syntactically valid. So we have to allow them even if I don't understand them. Okay. All right. Well, that's the red cross really cuts straight to my heart. I do not feel good about that. But fingers crossed. We're now at 70% dropped frames, so that's quite worrying. Yes, I've just realized oh dear. Okay, the tests are looking okay. Sorry, I'm trying to very clumsily restore my computer to its previous state, which I sort of trashed because I was worried that something on my machine was impacting the dropped frames, but I'm now fairly convinced that it wasn't. Okay. All right, I think that passed, yes. Whew. Okay, well, wow. This has been a... Of course, none of the buttons are working either. This has been a fairly... you know, there have been a fair number of technical problems in this stream, for which I apologize. I don't know what I can do about the drop frames. I am going to investigate, but maybe it's just my internet connection is not good tonight. And yeah, I made a bit of progress. Got a couple of test files passing there. Got past 1,000 commits. I do feel like I've got a little bit of that momentum I was talking about, and actually leaving it halfway through, getting another one of those tests passing is actually, that will make it a lot easier for me to just pick up that thread next time and just carry on with it. So I'm sort of glad about that. I wish the stream had worked better. I wish the tests hadn't broken. But, you know, sometimes things just don't work the way that you want them to, do they? So while the stream is still working, and while I still have half a smile on my face, I will say bye. As always, I'm very grateful to you for watching this. So thanks for sticking with it through the various varieties of technical difficulty. And yeah, I'll see you next time. I'll just carry on with what I've been doing. I'll see you then. Thank you. Bye.